and I will be doing the CleerWay Community Church midweek messages every other week. Sometimes these will be just one-off topics, and sometimes they will be a series that will continue for a few weeks. Just to warn you that currently I'm living on an uncomfortably busy street, and I'm also sitting on a very squeaky chair, and all of this might be revealed as we continue. But today I wanted to sort of carry on from what Martin was sharing last week about whether God answers prayer, and he gave evidence from his own life how God answered their prayers. And I want to take that on a bit further and today look into the topic of how does God answer prayer? Does he always answer prayer? Do we just throw things at him and ask for things and he waves his magic wand like Mary Poppins and just makes things happen? Are there prayers that do not get answered? Does he change his mind? Some of these topics we might not answer today, but we will look at some of them, and those we aren't able to answer today, hopefully we will tackle them in the weeks to come. And from my understanding of the scriptures, my recipe for talking to God and hearing him reply to me actually is very, very simple. And I shall give you 3 points for that. Number 1, pray. Number 2, have faith. And number 3, work for it. Now, prayer is the way in which we come close to God and ask him for something. I often find I'm quite a sort of transparent person, and I work with words. When people ask me something, I know what they want. I can't always read everybody's mind. God, on the other hand, does know our minds, and he does know the desire of our hearts. But when we ask him, it makes a relationship. We come close to him. We request from him. He feels like he's involved in our lives, and he wants to be involved in our lives because he's our Father. And of course, we could ask for anything and everything, but one of the things we need to make sure of is that when we're asking for something that is in line with God's will, surely he's not going to answer our prayer if we want to do evil to someone. But how do we know that it's in his will? We know that something, what we're asking for, is in God's will if we read it, if it's something that Jesus has done. We know that God is good. If it's good, then we know he will want it to happen. If it's something that's going to build us up in character, we know that he will want that to happen. Jesus healed the sick. He forgave the sinner. So if we're asking for forgiveness, surely God is going to answer us. If we're going to ask for healing, that's in the will of God. Goodness of every kind is in the will of God. And he is also involved in the very, very tiny, maybe insignificant things of our lives. I remember there was a phase in my life where I used to park in a very busy street in the capital city of Turkey. And every time I looked for a parking place, I used to say, Jesus, find me a parking space. And I used to see a car moving out of that parking slot. Now, I'm not saying that this will always happen, but God knows what we need, and he knows what we desire, and he knows what is good for us, and he also knows what is not good for us. So, first of all, if we want to see God answer prayer, we do need to pray and come close to Him. And secondly, we have to have faith. Now, this is quite an important subject that I would actually like to talk about in the next session as well in more detail. But having faith is an interesting thing, because Jesus says to His disciples, "You of little faith, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you will be able to move mountains." Now, those verses often make me question my faith. When something doesn't happen and I ask God and I don't see the result, the answer, does that mean that I actually don't even have faith smaller than a mustard seed, as small as a mustard seed, which is tiny? Does that mean I have no faith? And it's quite depressing to think that maybe I have no faith and that's why He doesn't answer. But actually, that really depends on how we look at faith. Faith is not something that springs out of humans. Faith is a gift from God. And as I said, we will look into the subject of faith in the next session. However, having faith means trusting that God is above the situation that we're praying for. Having faith is seeing who God is and what He is in that particular situation, acknowledging the fact that He's more able than us, acknowledging the fact that He has conquered death, acknowledging the fact that He's able to answer all our prayers because He's from the beginning to the end, Alpha and the Omega. He's the creator of all things. So if He has created all of this, then He's able to answer our prayers. And once we understand who God is, once we put Him in the rightful place, then we have the faith to give our burdens, hand them over to Him. Otherwise, most of the time, you will have noticed that we hold on to our burdens. We try and carry them ourselves. We don't want to, but anxiety comes and takes over us. It's very difficult to acknowledge the fact that God is able to actually deal with it all. So having faith in who God is and what He has done for us through Jesus on the cross enables us to have the gift of faith to hand things over to Him in prayer. And thirdly, of course, work for it, because some things don't just happen. There is a story which you might have heard that there was a flood in a village, and this man, who was a very devout Christian, was trapped in his house. He was on the ground level when floods started rising, and he saw a car passing by as the floods were rising, and the man in the car said, "Come out of the door, get in the car, I'll drive you to safety." And the man said, "No, thank you very much, I have total faith in God, I'm not going to come with you." Floods carried on rising. They came up to the second floor. The man went up to the second floor to avoid drowning, and he saw a boat passing by his house, by his window. And the man in the boat said, "Come out, swim to the boat and I'll save you." And the man said, "No, thank you very much, I have total faith in God, He can save me." And then he had to go upstairs to the roof because the floods kept rising. Once he got on the roof, he saw a helicopter coming. The helicopter extended a ladder and said, "Jump on the rope ladder and we'll pull you up." And the guy said, "No, thank you very much, I have total faith in God." And then he drowned, and when he saw God face to face, he said, "So what was that about? I believed in you, I thought you were going to save me." And God said, "How about the man in the car and the boat and the helicopter I sent you?" So God uses other people. God uses our experiences, our skills to actually answer prayer as well. And it is no good, for example, if I wanted a particular job, sitting down and thinking God is going to do it for me is no good. I still have to apply for the job. I will still pray and have faith, but I will still have to apply for that job. So we do need to, once we've asked in prayer and have faith that God is able to deal with it, we also need to make sure that we are working towards it. Not that we have it in our control. We totally have it because of our faith. We totally have it under God's control. In faith and by faith and through faith, we hand it over to God. But at the same time, we work together with Him to make things come true. And that's how God works in our lives and answers prayers. Now, as to why sometimes we don't see prayers answered, well, there are reasons, and we will talk about that when we actually, next time around, talk about faith. But my prayer is that whatever the desires of your hearts are, whatever your prayers are, that you might find yourselves getting really close to God and in a tangible, supernatural way experience His reply, His answer, His solution to your prayers. Many blessings.